Have you ever felt totally lost when you're just starting a big project? Well, the secret to finding your way isn't about having all the answers right away. It's about asking the right question. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how you can craft that perfect research question, the one that will guide you from the very beginning all the way to the end.
Yeah, we've all been there. You're looking at this massive, super interesting topic, but it feels like you're staring at a blank map. You have no compass, no destination in mind. It's just overwhelming. And that feeling of being lost, that's exactly why a great research question isn't just a nice to have, it is absolutely essential.
And this right here, this is a perfect example of making that shift from something vague to something really focused. So on the left, you've got the topic, social media and mental health. I mean, where do you even start with that? It's impossibly broad. But then, look at the right. Now you have a real research question. It's sharp, it's answerable, because it zeroes in on a specific platform, Instagram, a specific effect, self-esteem, and a very specific group in a specific place, teenage girls in the UK. See the difference?
You know, you can think of it like this. A topic is like your destination city. I'm going to Paris. But your research question, that's the turn-by-turn GPS that actually gets you there. It is the roadmap that guides every single decision you make, from what sources you look at to the conclusions you end up drawing.
So, what are these essential ingredients? What is it that separates a vague idea from a really powerful question that can drive real discovery? Let's get into it. We're going to break down the anatomy of a great research question.
Okay, so at its core, this is what we're aiming for. It's not just any old question. It has to be clear, so everybody knows what you're asking. It's got to be focused, so you're not trying to solve all the world's problems at once. Concise, so it isn't confusing. And this is a big one, arguable. That means it can't be answered with a simple fact or just a yes or a no.
A really great way to test your question is with the finer criteria. It's a super handy checklist. Just ask yourself, is this feasible? Given the time and resources I have? Is it interesting enough to keep me and other people engaged? Is it novel? Is it adding something new to the conversation? Is it ethical to even investigate this? And finally, is it relevant? Does it matter to a larger conversation?
Okay, so we know the anatomy of a great question now, but how do you actually get there from that initial kind of messy topic? Well, the key is a process of narrowing it all down. It's kind of like focusing a camera lens until the picture is perfectly sharp.
It's really just a simple 4-step funnel. You start broad, of course. Then you start breaking that idea down into smaller parts or subtopics. Next, you interrogate it with those classic W questions. Who does this affect? What is the specific issue here? Where is this happening? And finally, you set some firm boundaries, a specific time period, a location, or a particular group of people.
And right here, we can see that funnel in action. Artificial intelligence becomes a very specific question about the ethical risks of using it in the justice system. Climate change becomes a focused investigation into how it affects one specific community in Bangladesh. This is how you turn a totally unmanageable topic into a focused, researchable project. Now that we know how to focus our question, let's talk about the different types of questions you can ask. Because the structure of your question, your blueprint really, depends entirely on what you're trying to find out. Broadly speaking, your questions are probably going to fall into one of two camps. Quantitative questions are all about the numbers. They want to measure and test things, asking what or how much. On the other hand, qualitative questions are all about meaning. They seek to explore and understand, asking how or why. And hey, if you're going the quantitative route, you absolutely need to know these two terms. The independent variable is the cause. It's the thing you think is having an impact. The dependent variable is the effect. It's the outcome you measure to see if that impact actually happened. Cause and effect. Simple as that. Within quantitative research, we can get even more specific. So a descriptive question just measures a variable. A comparative question looks for differences between different groups. And a relationship question, that one investigates the connections between variables. Each of these types sets you up for a totally different kind of investigation. All right, we have covered what makes a question great. But you know what? Knowing what not to do is just as critical. So let's dive into the 7 common traps that can completely derail your research before it even starts. These are the 7 most common pitfalls, the ones that can sink a research project before it even sets sail. Let's break them down one by one so you know exactly what to look out for. First up, we have the deceptively simple question. This one demands a single, easy answer for an issue that is just incredibly complex. I mean, there's no single date for equality, right? That makes this question pretty much unanswerable in any meaningful way.
Next is the fictional or hypothetical question. It's interesting to think about for sure, but it's not researchable. You can't gather evidence about a reality that never existed. This is pure speculation, not investigation.
Okay, trap number 3 is the stacked question. Can you spot the problem here? It's got a hidden, unproven assumption baked right in. In this case, that the Carter presidency did fail. A good research project would have to first ask if it failed, not just assume that it did from the get-go. Then we've got the semantic question. The entire answer to this question just hinges on how you define one single word, radical. So it becomes a debate about definitions instead of an actual investigation of historical events.
Oh, this one is a classic, the impossible to answer question. The scope is just way too vast, and the whole concept of inevitability is, well, it's more philosophical than historical. We just don't have the kind of evidence needed to give a conclusive answer.
And be really careful with questions that ask for a moral judgment. Now, this is an incredibly important ethical debate, but it's calling for an opinion, not an empirical analysis. Historical research can definitely inform the debate, but it can't definitively answer whether an action was wrong.
And finally, the anachronistic question. This happens when you apply modern concepts, like civil rights, to a historical period that didn't even have that concept. It's kind of like judging a fish by its ability to climb a tree. It just doesn't make sense.
So at the end of the day, remember this. Your research question isn't just a starting line. It is the engine. A powerful, focused question is what pushes you forward, what forces you to dig deeper, and what fuels that entire journey of discovery. And that brings us to the end. The tools are all yours now. You know how to narrow your focus, you know how to structure your question, and you know what traps to avoid. So the only question left is the one for you. What problem will you solve?